Uh, there you go. I did a big long mantra. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you for joining, for giving me that information. So let me revamp. Oh my lord, I've been talking and stuff. So welcome to Write Code Live. This is what happens when you go digital. I'm so used to, as a radio guy, I'm so used to having a board. Yes, my mic is on now, Valerie. So thank you. You should be getting the sound now. Thanks. Thank you. See, there you go. It's live. That's what happens when you do live. But yeah, I'm from a radio, so I'm used to hitting buttons and stuff. Well, this is all electronic, all digital, and everything. So Valerie, thank you in the chat room for letting me know that I just gave you a monologue, and there was nothing there. It's all right though. We learn. We learn from our mistakes, right? What doesn't kill us grows makes us grow, right? So so, like I said, welcome to Write Code Live. The purpose of this site is for me, I am your host, Jeff Norton, to show you how to program, how to write code. And what we're going to do is I'm going to take real life examples. I have a pretty wide clientele with different types of applications that they use and everything. So we develop on a wide swath of technologies, and I'm going to take that opportunity to teach you guys. And so hang in there every day. We're going to try to get a video out there to you live so I can communicate with you. Right now, we're starting from scratch. So I'm using the writecodelive.com website. That's writecodelive.com website. If you go out there now, you're not going to go anywhere. There's nothing there for you to see. And what we're going to do is we are going to start from scratch. And the purpose of today's video is we're going to install the operating system, which I use Linux. You can use Windows. I'm a fan of Linux, especially for servers and stuff. So we're going to install the Linux today. I'm going to show you how to get that configured so that we can then put our website on that site. And then, of course, we will, as we build our website, we'll have our videos and we'll show you how that is done as well. The best way that you can reach me, obviously, right now is through my old site, which is a morning or the Midnight Ocean, which Valerie's on in the chat room there. And as we build our site, we'll add chat and everything. And you can see us on Twitch, right now, Facebook. Of course, you can go to YouTube and type in Write Code Live, and it will go to our new channel and everything like that. But as we build out our site, and we're going to do it from scratch. I'm not going to do anything hidden or behind the scenes. You're going to see how we build a site from start to finish using PHP, Linux, MySQL, which is a database. The operating system that we're going to use today is Ubuntu. We'll get into that a little bit more. And then, of course, our template system, we're going to use WordPress for this one. We might do a Joomla later, and I might just do a straight HTML down the road. But we're going to start out with WordPress. Those seems to be the most popular ones that people use. And we're going to actually build our own templates. Where you can get templates, there's a bunch that you can buy out there and stuff, but we're going to build our own. And I'm going to show you how you can do that. Building your own is a little bit better. It gives you a little bit more control. And the knowledge you get from that, you can actually turn into and maybe get a template and modify it a little bit. All right. So now that you guys can hear me, we're going to start out. And so what I have done is I use a product called VMware, which is a virtualization. So basically what it is, it's a very large server. This thing's huge. And when I say huge, not physically huge. That's what you hear in the background if you hear fans running, is one of my servers. And VMware allows me to virtualize. And basically on one server, I can put 20 or 30 different servers on there. And so I use a product, and that's what you're going to see here as we transition over. This is VMware, and this is just like, think of it as loading in the CD-ROM. Now, if you have a hosting company or someone that you use to host, typically they'll install this. But it's a good idea to learn how to do this, especially if you get into virtualization. I will tell you, there's managed hosting like GoDaddy and all those different people out there. I prefer, and hopefully we'll give you the skills, and you'll be able to contact me if you have questions. That's the other part of this too. Is it's all about teaching and showing and everything. I've been fortunate enough in my life that people have taught me, so now I'm passing that on to you. So feel free, communicate with me through the chat room and stuff. Send me emails. It is writecodelive@gmail.com. If you have questions or concern, I'll be glad to help you. I'm here for you. So starting out, so we loaded in the CD, right, in our virtual server. And now it is ready for us to progress. Of course, you're going to select your language. We're English. Ubuntu, let me back up here a little bit. Let me show you that there's two types of Linux. There's a lot of different flavors of Linux out there. Linux is an open source product. It's free. I mean, typically what you pay for when you buy Linux or when businesses buy Linux and everything, they pay for the service and the support of that system. So you go out to the Ubuntu site. That's spelled Ubuntu. The links are below. I did put those into the links of the video that get you out there a little bit easier. And you can download this for free. So, Microsoft Office or whatever, you're paying $200 or Microsoft, you're paying $200 for Microsoft. You can download Ubuntu or CentOS or Mandrake, or there's just a ton of different Linux variations that you can do. And there's desktop versions. We're going to install the server version today. When you see LTS, we're going to install 16.0.2 or 4.2. LTS means long-term support, which means this is the supported one. 17 still not ready to be supported, but this is the one that they're going to support and everything. So this is the server. Of course, you click on the link, and it will take you to the site, and then of course you'll download that and store that. It will be an ISA image, so you'll have to have a way of burning ISA disks. Maybe I will show a video on how to do that, but I've already done that. I've already burned the disk and everything, and that's what you see here. And like I said, the different flavors are actually in the links below. You can download. Get a desktop version. It's awesome. And it's like Windows. And for those for you Mac fans out there, Mac's operating system was based upon FreeBSD, which is a Linux variant and stuff. So for you Macs people, so here we go. We are in our setup screen. This is really easy. You don't have to be a computer software engineer to do this. So you select English. You just got to be able to read. So you select English. Now we're going to install the Ubuntu server. There's different things that you can do, but for right now is the Ubuntu install Ubuntu server. It's not the desktop version. This is the server version. Desktop gives you the graphical user interface. This is all command line. You can have graphical user interface with the server, but it's just a lot of overhead. It's a lot of overhead. And to be honest with you, it's kind of impressive when you type at the command lines. You actually feel like you're doing something, right? So we're going to install. Press install. It's going to go through. It's going to ask us, for our language, of course. And this is for the keyboard. We're going to go English, United States, and then of course, and this is just say no here. If you want it to detect your keyboard layout, it's a whole nother process. Typical, just say no, unless you have a special keyboard. And people that have a special keyboard, you guys have gone through this process before. But just here, you can just select no. English US, of course, pick out your region. And of course English US again, and then they have different variants of that depending on the type of keyboard you have. But almost 95% of the keyboards out there are especially the ones you buy here, this English US. And if you have a separate type of keyboard with special keys and stuff, what those settings should be or what you should be selecting, because you bought the keyboard for a reason, right? So we're going to do that. Just simple stuff. This is not that hard, guys and gals. It's very, very easy to do. And highly recommend it. Highly recommend this. You talk about security and everything. I mean, there's nothing more secure than installing the operating yourself, because you get to pick and choose what goes on there. Windows 10, and I'm not one here to trash an OS or whatever. That's not my purpose. But Windows 10, there's so many things that are put in there that you never use. There's there's spyware. There's so you guys know, I have it on good authority because I have friends in the business. One of the things that Microsoft has done is they got rid of their QA, pretty much their QA department, and what they do is they record everything you do, and then that gets sent back to the home base. That's right. And so, because that's being sent back to the home base, what kind of privacy is that, right? So that's why I like my own operating systems, and I can control what gets installed and what doesn't. And that's what we're going to do. So, host name. Host name, so you guys know, all computers have what they call an IP address or an IPv6 or IPv4. That's a digital address. It's kind of, think of it like your address at your house. If you go down to your county and you look for the plot number, right? That's a number, and so that's your IP. But the problem is if you give out your plot number or your longitude and latitude to your house, it's going to be near impossible to people can't know that. So we create a system, an addressing system, and the addressing system is basically your host name. So every computer has a plot name, or like your home, or has longitude and latitude. That's the IPv4 or IPv6, which is just a bigger, because we got so many computers now and so many devices that they had to increase the number. You can put that in there, or you can use what they call a host name. So what we're going to do is that we're just going to call this one write code live, and I'll just do it proper here, live, and we're going to just call it local for now, because it's a local server. It's not live yet. It's not out there in production. And when we want to take it out to production and stuff, we'll change the .local to .com, right? So this tells us that this is a local server in our stack. It's not ready to go prime time yet, guys and gals. So here we go. And you can call it whatever you want. I mean, some people call it, my computer, whatever. Give it a name. You can just call it localhost if you want. That's another thing too. Just local host will work as well. It's not, you're not registering out on the internet or anything, so it's fine. And it's when you make it live on the internet, you have a problem. Now, what I like about Ubuntu is Ubuntu, unlike CentOS, now they all adhere to strict security policies. Ubuntu, they'll won't allow the root admin user to log in directly. You actually have to log in as a user, and then you have to switch to the admin. And that's just another level of security. That's why I pick Ubuntu over CentOS, to be honest with you, and everything. So I'm going to put in the full name of the user. So I'm just going to put my name in here. No secrets there. Now my user account, I typically, first letter, last name, whatever you want. This is your username. This is what you're going to log in with. And of course, you're going to put in a password. And so I use my standard password, and it's going to ask you again, and it's just making sure that you know your password. Type it in correct, because without it, you can't get in. Right? And encryption. Now, this is totally up to you. This is if you want to encrypt the hard drive. What this means is, say someone physically gets access to your machine or to the hard drive, and they pull the hard drive out. They can take that hard drive, plug it in another machine, and read your files, right? So if you encrypt your hard drive, if they pull the physical drive out, they still can't read your files. And there's a lot of arguments out there. I typically don't use this level of encryption, and we'll talk about security down the road as we get in there. I have a different level of security, because this is a security, this is open source. Linux is an open source product. And what that means is that the source code is readily available. So their encryption algorithms and the way that they do things, it's available. There's the code's out there, and people can read it. Governments, whoever, can read that stuff. So I create my own. All right. So and we'll get there. I'll show you how to. That would be a great week-long topic as we do. So I'm just going to say no. I'm not going to encrypt. And the other thing too, the downside to encryption, not the downside, but the thing, you're encrypting the data, so it has to be decrypted before it can be presented. So you will slow the computer down and everything. So I just say no here, because I'll use my own encryption. which I'll share with you guys. And not the keys, though. You have to create your own keys. So we'll just say no here. And there we go. So it's setting up the clock. It's detecting where we're at. And of course, it knows, wow, knows that we're in the New York time zone. Imagine that. And you say yes. And I'll show you how to change that here in a minute if you are in a different time zone, if it does not detect it for you. So, all right. So the other option that you get in here, partition of the disk. Now, this is kind of what it's up to you. And I'm going to tell you, I'm just going to use guided, use entire disk as a large volume medium. In other words, it's going to take the entire disk and it's going to partition it and everything. That's the best way. System administrators like to create partitions. Like in the Windows operating system, everything goes in one partition, right? In Linux, you can actually segment a hard disk and say this partition and that partition. What's nice about that is that you can actually put things on a user level, files in a partition, and not give access to it, right? So you have a separate level of protection there. The other reason why a lot of people is that they'll put the OS, like if they have to do updates or patches, they'll put the operating system. Have you ever bought a Dell? Dell, they actually put the operating system on a partition. And then if they have to restore the computer, instead of you having to put a computer disk in or whatever, they can just go to that partition and just reboot the machine. And so that's the advantages of it. There's some other ones, but this one here, we're just going to stay and this is pretty much standard stuff here. Guided, use entire, and set up large volume. Now, large volume allows you to go to large disk size. Most operating systems have a limitation of the size of the hard drive, or LVMs exceed those limitations. It also allows you to take several drives together and put them together in a RAID-like system and stuff. But for our purposes here, without getting too crazy, we'll just use the guided. That's the thing. So it sees that I got 17 gigs. That's what I allocated this computer when I set up the virtual machine on my drive. You just hit enter there and write the changes. This is where the confusing part. A lot of people say no here because I just used to, you got to read. I know most people don't like to read the instructions, but here you want to say yes. So you want to say yes, write it. We're ready to go. So say yes. And we're going to use the full. Like I said, you can split it up, but we're going to use the full 16 gig here. And there you go. So now it is putting it there. Right changes the disk. You're going to say yes. It's asking you again, are you sure you really want to do this? And yeah, I pushed the button. So yeah, I'm sure I want to do this. And so now what it is doing is installing the operating system server. And it's going to ask a few more questions here after it gets done running through its install process. This is a good time. I need elevator music. I'm afraid to play music now because I'll forget to unmute my microphone. Hey, this is a great time for me to do a shameless plug. I was going to tell people, if you guys are, I know obviously you're watching the show because you're a geek, right? You're into this stuff, or you want to get into this stuff. I'll tell you, you want to talk about geekdism? Please, it's readable now and not the screen of you. All right, so I'm getting some feedback here from some of our... Yeah, so Valor, what it probably is it might be the buffering and everything. Yeah, it's clear on this end. But yeah, we'll take a look at that. Hey, so shameless plug why this is doing this. If you guys are in the geekdom and stuff, there's a really cool site. And I gotta promote this. Go out to the circuit. Go to Facebook and type in the circuit, and get out there and help support them. What it is good friend Manu Itarami and his friends, Star Trek guy, right? Iche from Star Trek. They're putting together this really cool project where they're doing an anthology, a sci-fi anthology, and it's all Kickstarter, man. It's all crowdsource funded, and they're doing these movies, and they got Chekhov. I mean, this is really cool. The old Star Trek characters and everything, they've got together. So get out there and check them out on Facebook. It's called The Circuit. The Circuit. Uh, I always gotta promote those guys, and especially with my sci-fi friends and fans out there. Proxy servers? No, we're not going to use a proxy server. All right. So, what is a proxy server? You guys might ask. So, think of it as a server in front of a server. And what it is that when you connect to the outside world, instead of the outside world seeing your server, it sees the proxy server. Now, the advantage of that obviously is you can hide your identity. The other thing is that proxy server can actually cache websites and stuff. When you use Comcast and a lot of the cable modem business, a lot of your internet providers and stuff, they use proxy services. They actually don't deliver huge or vast amounts of internet speed. They don't have the pipe. So what they do is they cache a lot of things, and they store that, and that's what they're getting. So that's what proxy servers are, and there's various flavors. But we're not using a proxy. We're connecting directly. We will connect this one directly to the internet once we get our security up. So we'll just say continue here. Let me my mouse over. So we say continue, and it will go ahead and install. Yep. So the circuit. Get out there. Facebook. The Circuit. And check them out, man. Make a donation. I know that they're writing some scripts and they're doing some things. Updates. For me personally, we're at the section where it's asking for the updates. To be honest with you, I do my own update and my own up patches. Ubuntu, unlike Windows, you really don't have to worry about it like destroying something that you've been working on. But I prefer to, I want to control what goes on my servers, right? I want to control who comes into my home. And so I typically say no automatic updates, but you can go install security updates automatically. If you are not one who sits back and reads the documents and is out on several blogs and see what's going on security wise, I highly recommend, especially if this is your first computer, second, maybe third, or even fifth computer, to go ahead and say install security updates manually. I would recommend that for you. For me, like I said, I'm out on the internet. I manage literally hundreds of servers, and so I have a process and that we have developed that manages those things and pushes those updates out. I like to control, and sometimes you'll find that the first iteration might not be the best, so you might want to wait a few iterations of software before you push them. You guys in Microsoft world. So now we're just going to say no automatic update. And I'll show you how to update your computer anyways by hand. All right. So now it's going to ask you what flavor. All right. So we're a server, and it's going to ask you, what are you going to do with the server? That's what it's asking you here. Are you going to do LAMP? Now, LAMP stands for Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. And that's what we're going to install, right? So in Ubuntu, you can select this, and it compiles everything for you. And you're good to go. That would be the easy way, but that doesn't make good video, and it doesn't show you how to do things. So I'm not going to select that. But if you were doing it, you could do this. You could just select LAMP server, and it would do everything, and you don't have to worry about it. You're good to go. But we're not going to do that. You can select each package one by one if you wanted to do that. DNS. Remember how I told you the IP host name? That's what a DNS server is, a domain name server. That's the translator between your physical address and your geographical address. That's like the address book, and that's the server, DNS server. So if you were going to host or you were going to have your own DNS, you would do it there, and I'll do a video on that. LAMP, like I said, we talked about. Mail server. If you were going to come an email server or whatever, you got to be careful though. Email servers, a lot of security. You'll get banned quicker than anything else by not securing an email server. Of course, Postgres is a type of database server. Postgres, MySQL. I mean, there's a lot out there. Postgres is another one, very popular. I use MySQL. That's just the one I use. Samba file server. This is like if you wanted to have like a file server, like a share folder to put your documents, your pictures, all of that stuff. That's what this is for. It allows you to connect a Windows machine and everything to a Linux machine. And we'll talk about that. Virtual machine host. This is if I was setting up a virtual machine server, like the one that this is actually running on now. Um, so my virtual machines are quad Xeons. They have 128 gigs of RAM in them. They're pretty beefy machines. And if you want to know, I can get those things cheap for you. These are Dell 720s. Nice servers. And when I say cheap, very inexpensive. Highly recommend. Very. You're not going to play games on them though, but you can write a lot of code on them. And of course, OpenSSH server. Like I said, I'm going to install OpenSSH by scratch, but you could typically, if I was not doing a video, I would select OpenSSH and I would do LAMP and then be done with it. I'd also do Postgres or mail server. And the reason being is because I have a lot of applications because of authentication. I do what they call two-tier authentication. You log in, it sends you a code. As part of the programming I'm going to show you how to do in PHP, but it's going to send you an actual code that you have to type in as well. So not only do you have to get your username and password correct, but you have to have access to your email account that you're registered under, because then it's going to send you a code. It's another level of security, and we're going to show you that when we start getting into programming and everything. But for purposes of good video and content and stuff, I'm just going to say continue, and we're going to do this stuff by hand. So that's it as we burn through this disk, and it's installing. Linux is very fast. You're going to see how fast it is. Now, I will have to tell you, I'm running this, as I said, I got a quad Xeon with 128 gigs of RAM. Now, my hard drives are what they call SCSI. It's a type of hard drive. They're not solid states. They're ladders are spinning around. But you'll see. This is pretty good. I remember the day when we used to install Linux. It was like a 2-hour process compiling, doing all that. But that was back in the day. I remember the old. Now here you go. We're gonna take you back memory lane. How many disks were in the original Microsoft Office setup? We're talking floppy disks. Remember I don't even have a floppy around here. How many of those disks were there? I joke about that. That's actually an interview question. When people tell me they've been around computers for a long time, that's the first question I ask them, because that tells me. There's 32, by the way, to answer that question. So, yeah, you'd have to you remember disk 1 of 32, disk 2 of 32, disk 3. You don't have to do that anymore. And, yeah, remember those days, just flopping those disks out. Now, see, I even go back further than that. I'm a young man, but I still go back further than that. I remember walking around with a shoebox full of punch cards. That's right. Shoebox was perfect because the punch cards fit in there perfectly. For those that don't know what punch cards are, Google it. I was actually looking for an old punch card machine not too long ago to see if we can do it. I used to carry around where I'd make my own punch. The printers were punch them out, but you could have like a clipper that you can actually pump out. You can punch out your own pump card. All right, so install Grub Bootloader. Grub Bootloader is a way if you wanted to have like dual boot or turbo or whatever. So if I wanted to put Windows on here and boot into Windows maybe, or boot into whatever OS, Grub would manage that. But because this is purely a Linux machine, we're just going to say yes here, and it's going to install that. But if you wanted to dual boot, what they call dual boot, and there are reasons for that. Maybe you have a laptop that you're going to put Linux on, and you're going to run your Windows operating system, and then you're going to run Linux, when you're not at work and stuff. So you can do that. And yeah, I mean, Linux now, it used to be where it was really difficult. You had to compile everything for every manufacturer, and, sound cards, and, video drivers and all of that stuff. Linux now is pretty much, it's not like it used to be, guys and gals. It's very easy to do. All right, so we're complete. We're done. So it's telling us to remove the CD-ROM and reboot. So now we are rebooting, and there we go. We're gonna boot into our Linux operating system. Now, see, I like Linux because when it boots up, it actually looks like it's doing something. You feel like, wow, I'm a computer person. It's impressive. Like a hacker. All right, so here we go. Write code live. It's asking me to log in, of course. I'm going to use my username. because I can't log in as root. It will not let me. And then I'm going to type in my magical password. And there you go. We are at what this is called the command line. Now the command line is exactly that. This is you type in commands. The hardest part about Linux is knowing what command is. Now I will tell you the majority of the commands are the same commands. You don't have to really um, learn a whole lot. They're basically you'll use the same commands over and over and over again. The first command you need to know is called sudo. S-U-D-O. Sudo allows you to run commands as root. So you can't install any, well you can, but in the Linux operating system you can't install anything unless you're root. That's why you have a level of security. So applications just can't magically install themselves on your computer. You actually have to install them. And you have to be root. You have to have the permissions to do that. And so sudo allows you to run a command as root, right? Or you can do it, say you, like we're going to do here, we're going to run a bunch of commands. And I don't want to have to type sudo, S-U-D-O, every time I want to run the command. So I'm going to sudo, S-U-D-O, into SU, which means super user or root. And then it's going to basically, and you're going to know, you're going to know that you're in there, because if you look at the command line, you're going to see a $sign. That means you're a user. Now, when I log in, it's going to ask me for my root permissions, and you have what they call a sudo user file, and that's where you can say, all right, these users can log in as root, or can sudo, S-U-D-O, in as root, or use the sudo command. And we'll talk about that when we get into security stuff. But for right now, all you need to do is type in sudo space su, and then type in your password, and that will kick you over to root. I am now root. How do I know I'm root? Well, see the little dollar, the number sign? My $sign changed to a number sign. That means I am root. I am now root. I'm not Groot. I am root. Stuff. And so now I can run the commands, and I can run a bunch of commands. Now, like I said, what sudo does, if you only want to run one command, just one command as a root user, you just type in sudo and then the command, and it will just run that one command, and then it will exit when it's complete and that command's done, and you're going to go back to regular user. Just an extra level of security. That's why Linux is so widely used, and you have such a greater level of security. I've had many Windows machines in my life. I've never had them hacked, but I've had viruses. I've never had a Linux machine with a virus. Never, ever, never, never, ever, never happened. So that's the advantage, because of the security policy. So now we are now root. Now there's a couple things that we have to do. We just did our new install. So there's a couple things. Now your install that you downloaded is a snapshot, right? So there's updates since the last time that they published that snapshot. So the first thing we need to do is that we need to upgrade or update our system. And the way that you do that is the commands are pretty simple. As I type in, nothing happens here. It's apt-get. Now, if you were using CentOS, everything is the same, except CentOS you can log in as root, and you actually have to log in as root, and then when you first start up, you have to create your users, all that stuff, right? That's why I like Ubuntu. It makes you adhere to a security policy. We're lazy. Let me explain something to you. Program people are lazy. So you need to get them. You need to get us doing the right, adhering to the right security policies right from the bat, because we'll never. Oh yeah, we'll do it later. That never happens. So, but the command here is apt hyphen get apt-get. You're going to get an application. You're getting it right, and then we're going to finish out the command. Now, if I'll just show you this real quick. If I do update, right, And so I'm going to update my system. And I'm going to say enter. And it's going to spit out make this a little bit bigger. So it updated. Now the next command, and by the way, Linux has a history ability. So you can use the up arrows and go to your history. So every command you type in is stored in history. And you can just arrow up to go to that. But now I did an update, so that updated and that showed you what it did. Now I'm going to do an upgrade, right? This is going to upgrade my operating system, the Linux, the one version to the most recent version. And what's really nice about this is that it knows what you've installed, so it only upgrades those things that you've installed. It doesn't give you a bunch of other junk that you need. Now, see the yes, it's asking me, do you want to continue? Now there's a command, because as we add more and more to this, it gets pretty tedious, and I'll show you what that command is here in a second. But right now you just say yes. Why? You hit enter, and then there it goes. It's going to go out to the web server. It's very important that when you're doing these upgrades or updates and stuff, you are connected to the web somehow, that your machine can get out to the web, because all of these packages come. Now you can get and install those from the file system if you wanted to. Tim Hortons coffee. Some things haven't changed, guys, from my radio days. I still drink Timmy Hortons coffee. Best darn coffee you're within 500 miles of Tim Hortons, I highly recommend. You take the detour, get up there, get yourself a nice cup of black coffee, and order yourself a Danish. Highly recommend it. Good stuff. So we're updating, and it's going out and it's grabbing all the files and it's doing its thing as it updates. Now there's some other features, and you're going to see those. What's really cool about the Linux and with the command line, copy and paste. For those in the Windows world, Control C and then you go hit Control V. Well, in the Linux world, it's different, and I'm going to show you how that works here in a little bit, because I actually have a set of commands. I can type each command in one by one, and I'll include a file. That's telling me I probably got a meeting coming up. Yep, I got a meeting, so we're gonna blow through this pretty quick. See, that's the thing with doing this during the day. I like this though. I wish we had more chatters as we grow our audience and stuff. I'll chat with you guys, and we do have a way. We will have a way of you actually calling us and talking to us on the phone live on the air. How cool is that? I'm going to take a lot of our radio technology and bring it over. All right, so I'm back at the command prompt. I don't know if you guys can see that. Let me see if I can. There we go. How about that? There you can see the command prompt there. It's a little bit better. All right, so we did the update. Now, it is a good idea at this point to reboot the machine, to make sure that all of those upgrades get committed. So how do you reboot? Type in reboot, right? You have to do this as user. So let me show you. Oh, I'm gonna get out of super user, and I'm just gonna go to user, and I'm gonna type in reboot here, and that reboots the machine. You can do it as super user as well. Now you can restrict that. You can keep a user from rebooting the machine. There are configurables that allow you to do that. All right, so we have installed our new machine. Everything's there. So now I'm going to log back in. See that? Log back in. I'm going to move over to sudo su again. Now I could actually I can show you how this, so I'm this user, and I'll just show you how to do this real quick. And I want to install I'm going to start installing some of my software here. And here's a command. Remember how I told you how in the cursor, how you can, yeah, I don't know why it does that. So let me do this. I'm going to start fresh because it's going to do that. So I copied from a text pad and now I'm going to paste. So I just copy, I highlight, I hit Control C in Windows and I just hit the right mouse button and it drops it. Maybe it doesn't. I didn't copy it. So let me copy it in Windows and then a right mouse click. It's not going to let me do it here. Wow. These dirty dogs. So I guess we are typing in commands one by one. Why is that? That's weird. Must be something wrong with my mouse. I have to take a look at that. You know what? I'm going to bring this over here so I can be looking right at the screen and be looking at you as I'm typing. All right. So I'm going to do sudo, right? Now, sudo allows me to run individual commands one at a time and still as a user. So, and remember how I had to say yes? Well, I don't want to say yes. I'm lazy. I'm a programmer. I'm lazy. And now I'm going to install. So I'm going to apt-get sudo. So as user, as super user, I'm going to get a program. I'm going to assume everything yes. I'm going to tell it to go ahead and say yes for me. And what am I going to do? I'm going to install that program. And what program am I going to install? I'm going to install my database first, MySQL server. And then what's really nice is that I'm really lazy. I'm going to install a bunch at the same time. So you can actually now, you got to somewhat, there is an order of operation. You need to install your server before you can install the client. And the other thing is, remember how I said open SSH, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But I'm going to go ahead and install this, and this allows me to open up use another program to access my Linux box. Right now, I'm accessing it like I'm standing in front of it through my virtual machine, but maybe remotely. I want to get to it on my cell phone, and you can do that. You can actually access your servers from your cell phone. It's pretty cool. So here we go, sudo. I'm going to run it. It's going to ask me for my password just to make sure that I am who I am, and then of course it's going to run. Now, because I said yes, I don't have to ask. It doesn't have to ask me for a prompt every time. Now, asking me for the MySQL root, this is my standard, my password. I gotta say it on here. I almost did. And so this is to access the MySQL database server. Think of the database server as one big file cabinet. This is where we're going to put all of the data that we're going to use for our website that we're going to create eventually. Say OK. It's going to ask you again just to make sure. And then it's going to install. Now, one of the things when installing the MySQL server, and the reason why I break this out in this way instead of installing everything, it makes me adhere to a security model. And let me explain that to you. I got to get the command. See, I got to every once in a while pull and so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and go to sudo su. Right? So I'm already in as root user and I don't have to do this. There's a command that I want to run, and what that command allows me to do, and it secures my Linux. And you should do this when you install MySQL right off the bat. It's good practice. And let me pull up that command. See, I don't know everything right off the bat. And it's just gotta follow instructions. That's why we're doing this video, because this allows us to show you um, to have this. So what I'm looking for is the actual command. There's a lot out there on Google. Goodness. Come on. Don't you love this? It's amazing that I would have no problem finding this if I was doing it right off the bat. But now that I'm on, um, now that I am doing this live, it's going to make me. It's a simple command. It's a very, very simple command, guys. Um, maybe I'm just improving it. Automate. Go. All right. I think we can just do this. Here's the command. Yeah, that's not going to work. So let me see here. Let's see where it's at. Oh, come on. For the love of God. I used to know it right off of my head. I think I had it right. Yeah, I thought I typed it in right. All right, so it's going to ask you for the password that you set up when you installed the thing. Now, when you type in passwords, it doesn't give you any feedback that you're typing in a password, but you just have to know you are. Validate. Any other key? It said password plugin can be used to test password and improve security. Check the strength of the password allows the user to set only passwords which are secure enough. Would you like to set up validate password plugin? I'm going to say no. I'm going to hit any other key, but you could tell it to check for secure, or basically what it is it makes you adhere to a certain policy for doing your passwords. And I'm just going to say no here. Change root. No, I don't want to change it because I've already set it up. And remove anonymous users. Absolutely. We don't want anybody to be able to connect to our server anonymously. We don't want root to be able to log into our server from another location other than the server. We only want root to have access to the server from root from the server. So disallow root. You say yes. So you're not going to allow it to connect. What that means is that I can't connect to this database as a root user from another machine. I actually have to log in physically into this server, and then I can access root. It's another level of security. Remove test database. Absolutely. It's just a test database. You don't need it. Say yes. Reload privileges, and you're going to say yes. And what that does is it basically takes all of this information you put in and tells it to reload. All right. So with that, guys, I can't stop business. I can't stop paying the bills that we have. So what we're going to do is I'm going to stop this video. I do have a call that I got to make. When I get done with the call, we're going to come back and we're going to install Apache, which is our web server, and also PHP, which is our programming language that we're going to use to program our web server. And I do apologize for breaking it up, but hey, got to pay the bills and everything. But hang loose. Give me about 30 minutes or so. Take a quick break. Go eat lunch. Go drink a cup of coffee. Make sure it's a Tim Hortons if you're going to drink coffee. And we'll be back in a few minutes, about 30 minutes or so, and we'll continue. We'll continue on as we install our Linux operating Ubuntu operating system with PHP and Apache. And that's our goal. So that's a pretty lofty goal. I think we've done all right so far. Hang loose. We'll be back in a few minutes, like I said, and just kind of just hang loose. I'm gonna stop the the video and let it all reset. Take care.